Okay, try to imagine a world with no Google Maps, no planes, not even a clue what's over the next hill. Now, picture a man named Abram, living a totally normal, comfortable life, who suddenly hears a voice that asks him to pack up and leave everything behind for a journey into the great unknown. This is where an absolutely epic story begins, and we're going to walk through every single step together. So listen to this. This is not just a gentle suggestion like, hey, maybe you should think about moving. No way. This is a command that changes everything. God tells Abram to leave his country, his entire community, even his dad's house. And where is he going? Well, God doesn't say. He just says, to the land I will show you. Just think about that for a second. It's like being handed a blank map with just one word written on it, go. That's the ultimate test of trust. All right, so let's talk about this radical call, because it came with an unbelievable sevenfold blessing. You got to understand, Abram's world in Haran was a happening place. It was a bustling city, a major stop on the ancient trade routes. You can almost hear the noise of the market, smell the spices. It was familiar, it was safe, it was home. And right into the middle of this ordinary life comes this extraordinary call. It's a moment that literally splits his life in two, before and after. But here's the thing, God doesn't just ask Abram to give it all up. He promises him something incredible in return. And this promise, it's not just one little thing. It's a powerful 7-part blessing. Now, in the Bible, the number 7 is a really big deal. It often means something is complete or perfect. So this is no small promise. God is basically saying, Abram, if you trust me on this crazy, impossible step, I will give you a complete and perfect future, all wrapped up in these 7 amazing promises. Okay, let's break these down because each one is huge. First, I will make you into a great nation. That means descendants and it means land. Next, I will bless you and I will make your name great. So that's personal success, a great reputation. But then it gets even bigger. You will be a blessing, meaning Abram himself will be a source of good for others. Then God basically says, I've got your back. I'm like your personal bodyguard. And that final promise, wow, all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. This is the takeaway. It's one man's personal journey, but it's going to have global consequences. So, what does Abram do? He obeys. And get this, he was 75 years old. This wasn't some young guy looking for adventure. Just try to picture that scene. The creaking of the wooden carts being loaded up, the chatter and chaos of the whole household packing, the sheep bleeding everywhere, and the goodbyes. Oh man, the goodbyes. The quiet tears and tight hugs with family and friends who must have thought he was absolutely out of his mind. And then, the caravan starts to move. Abram, his wife Sarai, and his nephew Lot just turning their backs on home and heading out into the dust, with only a promise to light the way. And let me tell you, this was no weekend road trip. This was a massive undertaking. They started way back in Ur, moved to Haran, where he got the call, and then journeyed hundreds of miles south into the land of Canaan. Their first major stop is a place called Shechem. They're finally there. They're in the land God was showing them. But what they find presents an immediate and very big problem. So Abram arrives. He's probably exhausted, but also excited, ready to build this new life. But he immediately hits a wall. He gets to this so-called promised land, only to discover, wait a minute, people already live here. The Bible says it plainly. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. Can you imagine his confusion? Like, God, did you send me to the wrong address? Am I supposed to fight these people? This is the very first test of God's promise. But Abram's response tells us everything about him. He doesn't panic. He doesn't pick up a sword. He worships. He builds an altar there at Shechem, and then another one later at Bethel. Now, in the ancient world, building an altar wasn't just for quiet prayer. It was like planting a flag. It was a bold public declaration saying, this land might belong to the Canaanites for now, but I am claiming it spiritually for the God who promised it to me. He's literally marking his journey with acts of faith. Just when it seems like Abram is settling in, disaster strikes. Imagine the sky just turns to brass. The clouds disappear, the streams dry up, and the ground cracks open. A severe famine hits the land. Now think about that. The very land that God promised would be a blessing is now threatening to starve them to death. Can't you just imagine the doubt creeping in? God, did you really bring me all this way just so we could die out here? So Abram has to make a choice. Stay and trust, or leave and survive. And he chooses survival. The caravan turns south, heading for Egypt. Now, in the ancient world,
Egypt was the superpower. It had the Nile River, so it almost always had food when everyone else was starving. But it also had a powerful, unpredictable king, the pharaoh, who had the power of life and death in his hands. This was a really risky move. And as they get closer to Egypt, you can just feel the atmosphere change. They leave the dusty, empty plains, and suddenly they see them on the horizon, the massive, intimidating pyramids and temples. This wasn't just a new country, it was a whole different world, with different gods and different rules. And as they got closer, Abram's faith, which had been so strong, started to crumble under the weight of fear. This is such an important question, because it shows us that even the greatest heroes in the Bible were, human. They got scared, they made mistakes, and they had to learn how to trust God all over again. Abram is about to make a decision based completely on fear, not on faith, and it's going to have some serious consequences. So what was Abram so afraid of? Well, it all centered on his wife, Sarai. She wasn't just pretty. Ancient writings say her beauty was legendary, like stop and stare beautiful. Abram's fear was actually pretty practical, in a scary way. He figured that when the Egyptian officials saw Sarai, they'd immediately want her for Pharaoh. And the easiest way to get a man's wife? Kill the husband. He was terrified for his life. So Abram comes up with a plan born out of fear. It's a half-truth, which, let's be honest, is a whole lie. He tells Sarai, look, when we get to Egypt, tell everyone you're my sister. His thinking was, if she's my sister, they'll have to negotiate with me for her, not just kill me. But his plan completely ignored Sarai's safety. He was protecting his own life by putting his wife in a terrible, dangerous position. And wouldn't you know it, Abram's fear becomes reality. The Egyptian officials see Sarai, report her stunning beauty to Pharaoh, and just as Abram predicted, she is taken from him. She's brought right into the king's palace to become one of his wives. This is the absolute lowest point of the story. That promise of a great nation, it now seems impossible, because the future mother of that nation is in another man's house. Inside that palace, the situation is tense. Abram's plan has failed miserably. He saved his own skin, sure, but he lost his wife and compromised the entire promise from God. But here's the amazing part. Even when Abram's faith failed, God's faithfulness did not. See, God's promise was never dependent on Abram being perfect. So God takes matters into his own hands. First, he strikes Pharaoh and his entire household with these terrible diseases. It becomes obvious to Pharaoh that taking Sarai has brought some kind of divine curse on him. He summons Abram and confronts him. What have you done to me? Why did you lie and say she's your sister? Then, totally scared for his life, Pharaoh doesn't just kick them out. He gives Sarai back and orders his own men to escort Abram, Sarai, and everything they own safely out of the country. And this is the final, incredible twist in the story. See, for his trouble, Pharaoh had given Abram sheep, cattle, donkeys, and servants as a kind of dowry for his sister. And when he sends them away, he lets them keep all of it. So they walk out of Egypt, the place of their biggest failure, not shamed and poor, but protected and incredibly wealthy. It's such a powerful lesson that God's plan is so big, it can even work through our worst mistakes. So what can this ancient story teach us today? It's not just about history. It's really about the battle we all face inside ourselves, the one between trusting a promise and giving in to our fear. In Jewish tradition, this is all about improving our character traits, or what are called our midot. The key character trait in this whole chapter is bitachon, and it means a deep, foundational trust. It's the belief that God is in control, even when the situation looks completely hopeless. Abram showed incredible bitachon when he left his home. He totally lost it when he went to Egypt and let fear take over. But God's faithfulness shows us that his promise is what matters most. So here is our challenge for this week, for everyone in the family. Let's practice trust over fear. Abram's mistake was letting fear make him cook up a secret, deceptive plan all by himself. A better way is to face our fears with honesty and with other people. So when you feel worried or scared about something this week, instead of hiding it, find a parent, a friend, or a teacher you trust. Share what's scaring you and ask for their help. That simple act is choosing trust over fear. And that brings us to our final thought. Think about a time in your own life, big or small, when you had to make a choice. Did you trust in a promise? Maybe something your parents told you or something you believe about God? Or did you let fear call all the shots? It's a question Abram faced, and honestly, it's one we all face on our own journeys too. Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through this incredible story. We hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.